I was a strict Christian for the longest time until I started reading about how the religions steal from one another, and then I read all of Stephen Hawking's works and how the Earth came about and the possibility that the Earth has been around. I mean, I'll still honestly tell you, I guess I'd say I'm agnostic then. I have no idea, you know. I'm a skeptic. I know that there's no way to know if there's a God or not, and so I don't really waste a whole lot of time on it, because I'm going to be the same person morally that I am whether I believe that there's a God or not. So as far as Jesus goes, I probably don't really believe that. I believe that religion is a tool used to control people and to get them to think a certain way. But my personal morality, I would live the same way whether I thought there was, you know, whether I believed in Jesus or not. So it's not really taxing to me because...
Okay, the eyewitnesses of Christ who saw him risen from the dead, who wrote about him, what did they benefit versus what did they lose?
Well, I mean, you have to assume, you have to wonder who actually, I mean, nobody knows who exactly wrote what book and when. I mean, they're not copyrighted, and, you know, I mean, they very well, you know, they know years around when they've been published or when things have been found, but I don't know who wrote them. I don't know if they were there. I don't know. Again, why would you do something like that? Because you can control a very large group of people. You know, if there was no morality, if people didn't think that they were going to heaven if they were good, I mean, how many more wars would there be? How many more, in my opinion, there would be? Everyone would try and rule the world. I mean, but people believe there's a God, so they think, well, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to go to hell.
Sir, what did the first century followers of Christ who saw him risen from the dead gain?
Well, I don't know that there was any. I don't think I believe that he was risen from the dead.
Okay, but they claim to have seen him risen from the dead. Now, if they were lying, which is a possibility...
So says the Bible is what I'm saying.
They lived in an occupied country.
Yeah, and what did the occupation forces do to those first century followers of Christ?
Persecution.
Thank you. Persecution. So, the folks who made up this lie, this hoax, that Jesus had risen from the dead, they didn't gain anything from their lie, did they? What they got was persecution and death.
But the Bible is published.
But they martyred themselves, and look where they are today. That's
no,
not
they didn't martyr themselves.
Rome anymore, is it?
The Romans martyred them. Nero, Diocletian. The Romans martyred them. And why did they martyr them? These guys who said they saw Jesus risen from the dead, stood before the Roman soldiers, and the Roman soldiers said, say Caesar is Lord and live. Just to include Caesar to your pantheon of deity, and we'll let you live. Or else maintain that your Jesus is Lord, that he is risen from the dead, and we will kill you for it. So remember what you're saying.
Because
these guys created a lie
against an occupation.
that they had seen Jesus risen from the dead. And they were all so committed to their lie that they all died for it.
Well, but this is, where is that information coming from, that happened?
Study the first century, sir. The Christians were martyred for their belief that they had seen Jesus risen from the dead. It's not in the Bible. It's in Roman history and Jewish history.
How many people saw it is what I'm saying, in your opinion?
Tons of people saw the early Christians get thrown to the lions.
No. I'm saying how many people saw Jesus rise from the dead?
Over 500, Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 15.
Okay, so that's 500 out of the 100 billion people that have lived.
Yeah. So just think, you've got these eyewitnesses saying, we saw Jesus risen from the dead. And if you're right that they're lying, which is a possibility,
I'm not saying they're lying.
the problem is that they're creating a hoax.
It's published later. I mean, the Bible wasn't written right then. As soon as he was risen, they didn't sit down and write it down. It didn't come along till later. So they weren't the ones writing it. These witnesses, it's people later that are writing and say, hey, all these other people saw it. They didn't see it.
Sir, 50 days after the resurrection of Christ, Peter stands up on the streets of Jerusalem and says, you killed the Christ, God raised him from the dead, and we're all eyewitnesses of this fact.
He didn't write that
and I can promise you, Nero killed those Christians because they were following Christ. That's the historical evidence. So, if those eyewitnesses were lying, they died to cover up what they knew to be a lie.
I just don't believe the Bible is a historical
That's what I'm
fact.
saying that they did. Because they were trying to make a point to the rest of the people in their country to start fighting against the occupation of Rome.
That is not what they taught. They taught the opposite.
Of course, it's
Peter
not what they
writes in
taught,
1
because it's
Peter,
an underlying
you obey the
motive.
government. You don't overthrow the government, you obey it. So try a little harder.
So you're going to tell me that the Jews who were occupied by Rome they wanted Rome there?
No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about followers of Christ in the first century who said, we have seen Jesus risen from the dead. What did they gain from that? They gained persecution and martyrdom.
Yeah.
Which means,
The potential
your
to end
theory
the
is,
occupation
these
of
guys
Rome.
created a hoax,
That
a
is the answer I
lie,
keep giving you, and you
that
keep
Jesus had
ignoring it.
risen from the dead. My problem with your theory is, you don't get a bunch of people to cover up a lie by dying for it
Sure you do.
when they know it's a lie. No, you don't.
Why not?
Why not?
Because psychology shows that if you know it's a lie, you're not going to sacrifice too much comfort, needless to say your life, to cover up what you know to be a lie.
It's about the greater good. I can get 500 people together that say the greater good is more important than my life. In fact, I'll throw my own hat into that ring
You'll die to cover up a lie?
if it's for the greater good.
Well, if you think that the greater good is served by you lying and covering up a lie, wow. I think that's pretty sad, to tell you the truth, sir.
If someone came to me today and said, if you give us your life, there will be peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis, I would do it in a second.
Good for you. I admire your altruism.
And of the 6 billion people, I bet I could come out with 499 more people that would do that.
I can
Or
promise
if
you
you were to
that
adjust for the
is totally different from
amount
the
of people.
resurrection of Christ.
It's not. It's really
course
not.
it is.
You just want to believe that it isn't.
No, you're not being rational. You're being irrational.
Irrational, Dylan.
Really irrational. Embarrassing, sir, really.
Yes, I'm so embarrassed. It's so embarrassing to think that somebody might want to give up their life for other people. Oh wait, you believe Jesus did that?
That's not my point. My point was, you are giving up your life to cover up what you know to be a lie? And then you say, well, yeah, if I believe that that lie is for the greater good, I'd be willing to die to cover up what I know to be a lie?
It's very hard to accept eyewitnesses. You know, you can get 1,000 people together and say a plane
Yes.
crashed. So I'm saying nowadays, yeah, it's hard to accept eyewitness, to look back and say, oh, you know, they could have been lying. But obviously we're not taking into context, like, they don't have that crap. They don't have photos. You know, you say, give me a photo of Christ rising. Can't really do that. Wasn't really existed at that time. So, you know, I'm just trying to say, you know, it's kind of hard to take into context. So that's why, honestly, people nowadays, it's hard to kind of like look back and be like, you know, oh my God, I can't give you that evidence because it doesn't exist. So yeah, they might have lied. It might be true, whatever. You might actually somewhat one day make a point when you're dead or something. But, you know, I'm just saying, you gotta like take that into context. It's hard to kind of like get this evidence, but you know, eyewitnesses at that point, that's hard evidence. Whereas nowadays, it's not hard evidence. So you kind of, you know, guys just gotta take that into kind of context. And yeah, you kind of gotta have faith with it. That's what faith is about. Is, while it's not so much like a blind faith, you know, that is possible. You know, you just kind of gotta have that faith to believe that something kind of existed. I don't always believe it, but I'm just saying to kind of, you gotta like think on both ends.
You know, the embarrassing thing is that you and I could be put to death based on eyewitness evidence.
Yeah, we could.
In a court of law in the United States, you and I could be put to death based on eyewitness.
But it's not, I'm just saying that it's not always like, a lot of people nowadays, especially because of shows like, you know, CSI or whatever, they really want hard evidence. They want fingerprints, they want blood, they want all of this. So people are kind of weary on eye evidence. They want more. They're saying, yeah, it is, you know, it could be proof. It could be foolproof, but people always like want more nowadays. It's not, because they know that science can give them more. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Now, I was under the impression that there's a history department here at this fine university.
There it is.
And I was under the impression that you guys have to pay money to take those history courses.
Technically, yes.
I was under the impression, therefore,
Yes, if you want to take class, then yeah.
that historical knowledge is a legitimate form of knowledge at Ohio State University. Well, guess what? Historical knowledge is a legitimate form of knowledge at every university campus. Historical knowledge is different from scientific knowledge. Scientific knowledge is based on the repeatability of an experiment. If you can do it here in a lab at Ohio State, but you cannot do it at the University of Indiana,
It's not accepted.
exactly, not accepted. If you can't do it in London, England, then it's not accepted. But historical knowledge is not based on getting Napoleon back to fight the Battle of Waterloo every September here on this campus. That's not how you verify whether the Battle of Waterloo took place. Instead, you study eyewitness testimony. You learn to distinguish between nonfiction and fiction. You learn to distinguish between different literary styles. You learn to study archaeology. You learn to study manuscript evidence. You learn the dating of manuscripts. And then you put the historical evidence together.